Welcome back to the arena, you guys. My name is Kinsey, and today we have a topic that I've been dying to talk about. Has broken the news, and that is the Niners' injuries and something that is kind of behind it. We will find out. So the Niners are statistically the most injured team in the NFL over the past decade. Since moving to Levi in 2014, 8 Achilles ruptures, 40-plus hamstring and calf tears. So we wanted to bring somebody in and get the science behind it. It's broken the internet right now, so I wanted to bring in a guy who is a software engineer, board-certified quantum biology practitioner. This is Peter Cowan. Welcome to the arena.
Thank you.
So first, I just want to start out and introduce yourself, introduce your experience and how you got into this study and what got you involved and just your experience and research behind it.
Yeah, well, last year, I see clients, and I help people that have a lot of long-term chronic issues that they're dealing with. And last year, I was seeing some clients that have a condition called MCAS, which mast cell activation syndrome, and it goes along with a condition called EDS, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is primarily characterized by hypermobility in the tendons. And I was curious as to why these two things were connected, and I started doing some research, and I found this connection between the mast cell issue basically degrading the collagen. And so I went into a deep dive on the research, and it really aligned up with my interests, which are basically how light and electromagnetism affect human health. And I made some progress with some clients. So when a couple months ago, Chase Sr., he's a YouTube sports commentator, posted about the substation. I remembered I had gone to a Niners game with my daughter a couple years ago. I remember on the back stairs seeing that substation. I got curious, and then just in my spare time while I was writing some code from some apps I'm developing, I started writing the Substack.
And so the Substack, can you go more into your research on some of the findings that you found that really have kind of blown this up on why this is an issue that the Niners should address? Yeah,
so what I found is basically five mechanisms that I identified, and it's really centers around two main things. One is mitochondrial function, and the other is circadian rhythm disruption. And so just to kind of, without getting too into the weeds, mitochondrial dysfunction, mitochondria are basically give our cells energy. They power everything. And if they get stressed, it's called oxidative stress, they will get damaged, and instead of producing energy, will produce something called free radicals. And eventually it leads to basically just, depending on where the weak point is in your body, all sorts of chronic disease. But another factor is that we create water with our mitochondria, and collagen is 60 to 7% water by weight, but it's over 99% water by molecular count. And it needs that water. It's part of the structure of collagen. So you're basically drying out the collagen. And I think about it as if you've ever left a rubber band in the sun, it goes from being nice and bendy to snaps just when you try to bend it at all. Uh-huh. And so that was kind of the primary mechanism that made me think, okay, this is likely a concern.
So Peter, explain the source of the issue as you see it for the 49ers. It's an electrical substation that was built in 1986. It's now very near the practice field and Levi Stadium, obviously in Santa Clara, correct?
Yeah. So this story, so I heard John Feliciano talking about it, and he mentioned that he was kind of joking about it, but then after he joked, he said there's some very high level players in the organization that take it seriously. So I thought, I'm going to take it seriously. And I went down there with my dad. I was down in the Bay for Thanksgiving, and on the way to the airport, we stopped, and I had my Gauss meter, and I measured. I couldn't get up to the facilities, so I kind of extrapolated. And so it's basically a very strong AC magnetic field. And I think, they spend up to 6 days a week there training those facilities, probably looking at film at night, and over a long period of time, gonna dehydrate their cells basically at a cellular level and contribute to that collagen issue that I mentioned.
Because this is all hearsay right now, and obviously a lot of people are questioning the studies going behind it, is this something that can be tested on the players to check the free radicals in their blood or the deterioration of their tendons or things that would prove any of this affecting the players?
I think there are some blood markers you could look for. That's not exactly my specialty, but I would look for dehydration at the cellular level, and there's something called the BUN creatinine ratio. As far as like the oxidative stress markers, you'd have to ask a doctor on that one, or a naturopath or something, but definitely could be tested for.
So Peter, these injuries seem to happen to the home team. So is there like a time frame you need to be around this plant in order for this to affect your body?
You know, I see it as more of a chronic issue. It's possible. There's so much we don't understand, and you mentioned that a lot of people are just kind of dismissing it. It is definitely cutting edge research. So I can't say whether or not there is an acute issue from it, but I more see a long-term chronic risk.
Yeah, referring to acute and chronic, just the chronic exposure is more long-term exposure to this. So yeah, the home team, they're saying over 10 years, it's really affected the Niners players. It has released now that a lot of the Niners players are contacting their agents over this issue. So it seems like the NFL might have to get involved soon, and there might be some studies coming out further. Are you going to be continuing your research on the issue?
I am, yeah. Actually, I've got, like, I think the most fair criticism I got is that the substation was there before, and they were training there next to the substation before they went to Levi's Stadium.
Right.
And so I'm working with a engineer right now who's done basically a history on the substation and how it's expanded in capacity over the years, and especially in the past 10 or 15 years, I think that there have been a lot of data centers and stuff put into the area, and the load has increased. And so that's what I'm looking into right now. And I think another interesting angle, though, is that the substation is definitely something that only the 49ers are subject to.
Mm-hmm.
No other team has one that's that close. So I think of it more as like, okay, let's say we actually can measure it and we see that it is elevated. I see it more as the straw that broke the camel's back, because the main factor that I think is contributing to this is the circadian rhythm disruption, that has been occurring and really increased since we basically started getting on our devices 24/7 and switched to LED lighting, which is really rich in blue frequencies, which basically trick our brain into thinking that it's morning at all hours. And that I think in my third essay, I write about that, and I link to two studies that I think would be really hard for anyone to refute. And I would love anyone to take me seriously and look at those studies and tell me how the circadian mechanisms that govern collagen synthesis and repair at night, tell me how that's wrong. I'd love to see it. So I think the substation is important, but circadian rhythm dysfunction is even more important. And on top of that, we've seen a massive proliferation in cell towers, especially in Silicon Valley over the past decade or so. The density has increased so much, and people are using their phones more, and we got Wi-Fi, and all of it, all does the same thing. And the load has just increased massively. So there's a lot of factors going on.
So Peter, to your point about the fair criticism, the substation, as you point out, was built in 1986. The 49ers moved to their new practice field next door in 1988. And then they won 3 Super Bowls in the next 7 years, and they weren't the most injured team in pro football. But to your point, the phone culture that we're in now has obviously amped up the exposure.
It's that, but like this engineer I'm working with has provided me, she has Google satellite photos, and it shows transformers being added. I think she said 2011.
Okay.
So the capacity has increased, and the demand has definitely increased.
Yeah, got it.
And
the magnetic field, sorry, go ahead.
And what would you directly say to a lot of people who are saying that this is just for a storyline? What would you directly say to those people, that the science behind it?
I would say go look at my Twitter and my blog. My blog didn't even exist. My Twitter was mostly me posting studies. I had like less than 3,000 followers. I was mostly posting studies about light and electromagnetism and like shit posting about having high testosterone and that kind of thing. Like I haven't tried to sell any products with this. I do direct people to my website, which is a free app right now. I've stopped taking any paid work right now so I can work on media. I'm losing money from this. I'm being called a conspiracy theorist. I don't see the benefit. Like, hopefully long term, it will, I will be proven that I wasn't crazy. And that there's a personal angle here too, though, that I worked for a wireless company and I got sick when I was working there doing software engineering for high-powered Wi-Fi modems. So it's personal for me. I care about people's health. I care about the players' health. I'm a fan of the team. Just seeing Kittle go down with a non-contact tendon rupture, which is exactly what I was writing about the other day. It's a bummer. I'm here because I want to help, and I'm down to engage with anybody who wants to engage in good faith.
Great. Let's sum this up. Why don't you finish for us by telling everyone how you would feel if you played for the 49ers right now?
I'd be very interested in knowing if it was a lawsuit. I'd be very interested in knowing if this is why I'm getting hurt right now. Okay, and I definitely be on the phone with my agent, with my lawyer, and if you're right, Peter, hey, a lot could come of this.
Do you think a lot of players will request to be traded because of this issue?
They're gonna request for the plant to be moved, or they probably want to be moved because it's scary, man. I can't put on a breathing mask, or, you know what I'm saying? I just got to go to practice, go to the games, and go to work. So they definitely going to want something done about this if Peter here is correct.
Yeah.
And obviously, the evidence that we do have is that the Niners' injuries that they faced in the last 10 years is clearly immense, and it sparked a lot of interest before this study began. So we really appreciate you coming on the show and giving some clarity and more scientific background behind it, because I know people have a ton of questions. So thank you so much for coming on. This is Peter Cowan, and you guys can go to his blog, look up more information. He has all the studies listed. So thank you so much for coming to the arena.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you.